All right, can I call everyone to order? Yep. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Audit Committee. This is the first one of the electoral year, so I'm very happy to welcome you all. And I would also like to welcome those seated in the public gallery. Welcome. I would also like to welcome our two new committee members. So we have Councillor Barrett and Councillor Rana. Welcome to the committee. And as well as our new independent member, Catherine Eribert. So welcome. Thank you. For those in the building, there are no scheduled fire drills tonight. So in the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the room via the main spiral staircase and through the main reception doors. Once outside, please turn left and make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park on Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, please wait in the council chambers and you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the council's YouTube channel. Please note that there is no comments function as part of this webcasting. The council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during the webcast. This will be done in accordance to the council's published retention policy. Any members of the public gallery that are seated should be aware that by entering the chamber, they are consenting to their image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting and or training purposes. Councillors are reminded to take note of what is displayed on the screens in the room, as this shows what is being recorded and webcast. Cameras are currently set to capture you in seated position, so please remain seated when speaking. You can request to speak as usual by raising your hand, speak by pressing the button with the face on it, and the microphone will go green when you are live. It is important to remember that when you are not speaking, to turn your microphone off. Committee members and officers are reminded to be mindful that given this meeting is being live streamed, any comments made, any responses given must not contain exempt information. So, do we have any apologies for absence?
We do, Chair. Councillor Tina Belbin has sent her apologies.
Thank you. And are there any disclosures of interest that councillors wish to declare? Okay, cool. So, thank you. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting of the Audit Committee held on 17th of March 2025? Thank you. Okay, cool. So we will now move on to the audit planning report for the year ending in the 31st of March 2025, which starts on page 11 of the agenda pack. I will ask Hassan Rohiman, partner at Ernst & Young, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll briefly take members through the planning report, and happy to take any questions which members may have. I'll just talk through section 1 of the report primarily, which outlines our audit strategy. The report was prepared at our planning stage in April. I think this is the first meeting where we can actually present the report. So on your page 15 sets out the context in terms of the reset of the local audit market, and then on page 16 outlining the rebuild of assurance, where members may be aware in terms of disclaimed opinions having been issued in previous years. The NAO has issued some guidance recently in terms of procedures that to be undertaken to rebuild assurance, and that particularly relates to the reserves position of local authorities. As a firm, we're considering that guidance that's been issued, and we'll soon be having specific procedures being outlined to us as a firm in terms of the steps that we'll be undertaking to in relation to the rebuilding assurance, and we'll provide an update at a future meeting of the committee. One of the key areas is what have we identified in terms as a result of undertaking our planning procedures. So they're set out on your pages 17 and 18 of the or summarised on pages 17 and 18 of the report. We highlight there the risks that we identified, and these are audit risks, and whether or not there's been a change from the prior year. The first two risks that are outlined on page 17, the risk of management override and the risk of fraud in expenditure and revenue recognition, are both risks which are assumed under international standards on auditing. The third risk, in terms of the valuation of land and buildings at existing use value and investment property at fair value, identified those as a significant risk, and that's because they are large figures on your balance sheet. They require the input of the council's valuer. They're based on some significant areas of judgment and estimation, and any changes in relation to those estimation factors which are considered could have a material impact on the what's reported within your financial statements. Similarly, in terms of the value of the pension fund asset or liability, again, that's a significant balance on your financial statements. It is accounted for in accordance with IS 19. Again, it requires the input of a specialist in terms of the actuary of the pension funds, and changes in the estimation technique in relation to the actuarial value could have a material impact. Moving on to all of those risks, there hasn't been any change from the previous year. Moving on to page 18, highlight the council has as part of its housing revenue account, council dwellings and the valuation of HRA properties. Again, a significant balance on the balance sheet. Identified that as a significant risk. Similarly to the land and buildings, we identify the valuation of assets which are valued at a depreciated replacement cost as an inherent risk, and that's because the depreciated replacement cost valuation methodology isn't as subject to significant estimations as those valued at fair value or existing use. And the area which is a new risk for us was the implementation of International Financial Reporting Standards 16, which relates to lease accounting for leases. In summary, the change of the new accounting standard, well, it's new for local authorities in terms of being first having to be implemented for the 24-25 financial statements. It really looks at getting more of the leases on balance sheet in a kind of a shorter summarised version of the standard. On page 19, we set out the materiality levels that we'll be using to undertake our audit. This was calculated, as I said, at the planning stage. Since the audit plan has been drafted, we have actually received the 24-25 financial statements, and the materiality levels, having received those statements, have gone up slightly. So planning materiality, the calculation methodology is still the same, but we've looked at the gross expenditure at 24-25 year end as opposed to using the prior year statements at the planning stage. So the materiality levels have gone up slightly. So the planning materiality is now 5.04 million. The performance materiality is 2.5 million, and the audit difference threshold is 0.25 million. planning materiality is the materiality level at which we consider there may be if there was an error in excess of that amount, then that would represent a material error which could cause us to qualify our opinion. The performance materiality level is the level which really drives our testing strategy and our sample selection methodology. And the audit difference threshold is the amount at which we'll be reporting any differences which are unadjusted to the committee. Page 20 summarises the scope of our audit, and I'll then just move on to page 22, where we highlight our responsibilities under the National Audit Office's Code of Audit Practice in terms of value for money. We've got a responsibility to look at the Council's arrangements under 3 reporting criteria: financial sustainability, governance and improving economy efficiency and effectiveness. Our responsibility is just to look at the arrangements which are in place, so we're not necessarily judging outcomes. We do within later on in the report, we identify that in relation to value for money at the planning stage, we identified a risk which related to financial sustainability, and that risk was looking at the council's financial position, particularly the levels of reserves. We highlight that within the report in terms of the procedures that we'll be undertaking to address that identified risk. And as I said, identifying a risk doesn't necessarily mean that we've identified an issue at the planning stage. Section 2 of the report provides more details on the audit risks that we've identified, and what the risks are, the procedures that we'll be undertaking in response to those risks. And within section 3, it provides more details on our value for money responsibilities. And I said, as I highlighted previously, the risk that we've identified in relation to that particular area of our audit responsibilities. Not planning on going through and doing a further page turner of the report, but happy to take any questions which members may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We are grateful for that update. I will now open the item for debate. So please indicate your wish to speak by raising your hand. Councillor Hellier, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. In relation to the actuarial value, are we concerned at all in terms of that aspect of it? And also, I have a question in relation to the audit differences. Threshold was set at 0.24. I think you said 0.25 when you're going through it. Why particularly that amount? And I have a third question in relation to the value for money report. Are we on target for the 30th of November for that? Thank you.
In terms of the first questions, should you be concerned about what's reported within your financial statements in respect of the pension fund IS 19 figures? I suppose the short answer would be we identify it as a risk because of it being a large item on your balance sheet and it being an area which is subject to estimation. However, I'm sure Carolyn will kind of outline that any changes within that actuarially assessed figure doesn't actually have an impact on your bottom line, because even if we did identify a significant difference, it's effectively, for local authority accounts, it's just reversed out in terms of your bottom line, so it doesn't actually hit your bottom line. But from an accounting and auditing perspective, we identify it as a risk because of the sheer magnitude of the figure. Then in terms of the second question, which was to do with the audit difference reporting threshold, so that is based on a calculation. So we use we calculate that at overall in terms of calculating our materiality levels. We, as outlined in the report, we calculate the planning materiality at 2% of your gross expenditure, which was reported within your financial statements, and then the next figure there, the performance materiality, which drives our testing strategy. That is set at 50% of the planning materiality figure. We under our approach, we can either have that at being set at 75% or 50%. We've set it at 50%, which is the lower of the two, because of some issues that were identified within the previous, when we were undertaking some of our work previously. So the last time we completed the audit was in 22-23, and then the next level in terms of the audit difference again is just a formulaic approach in terms of 5% of the overall figure. So it's and that's under our audit methodology. That's the figure at which we assess that any differences which are below that level would maybe deemed to be trivial, but anything which is above that, then it will be sufficient magnitude to bring to the audit committee's attention if it wasn't adjusted. And then the third point in terms of whether our work is on track for completing by November. So we're currently undertaking our audit of the financial statements at a team kind of virtually on site at the moment, and we are on track for getting the work completed within the next few weeks, so well ahead of the November timetable.
Thank you. Councillor Ashraf.
Thanks for the report. My question is about the level of reserve. You have identified that as a risk area at the planning stage. On what basis you have identified this? Is it how safe we are? Are there any parameters? How far we are from those sort of parameters, or any standards we have? Thank you.
I think it's not for us as auditors to say what your minimum level of reserves should be. The council does have set its own have a policy in terms of the minimum level of reserves which it has deemed to be sufficient. We've identified it as a risk because in recent years the level of usable reserves has been reducing. It's getting close to the level which the council has set. So that's why we've effectively once you've used reserved once, they've gone. So it's quite it can always be considered as a one-off in terms of utilising reserves to mitigate unforeseen issues in terms of financial planning. So that's why we identified it as a risk for our audit reporting responsibilities.
Would you like to come back? Yeah.
Yes, if I can just add about the minimum reserve that is set by the council, that is 3 million, and we've got a sort of a timing difference because this report should have been considered at an earlier committee, and our budget for last year showed us taking from the reserve, and we would have gone below the 3 million, which is, of course, is a risk. But as you all heard at Scrutiny Commission last night, we had a really good outturn, so we're actually higher than the 3 million. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Russell.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the report. I think, if I've understood it correctly, you've identified that the valuations on PPE are a potential source of potential concern. And again, if I've got it correct, on page 44, I think in July and August there was going to be substantive testing I wondered if that has started and if there's any news on that and how it's going.
Yeah, so our work is currently underway in terms of the work which we're doing on the year-end accounts. There are queries which we've kind of asked of management. They've been responding to our audit queries. We're in the process of undertaking our work, so wouldn't want to kind of report back at this stage until we've actually concluded our work and then discussed any kind of issues with management. There isn't anything at this stage we want to bring to the attention of the audit committee. What I would say is similarly to accounting for pension funds, just to kind of highlight for your information that when it comes to the valuation of land and buildings, then similarly to the pension fund accounting, even if there is a big difference on valuations, it actually gets, it's a peculiarity of local government accounts. It gets reversed out and it doesn't actually kind of hit your bottom line again, which I'm sure Carolyn would kind of highlight as well.
Thank you. Yeah, would you like to come back?
Just in addition, members are aware that there will be training to go through the statement of accounts by the chief accountant, and I'll make sure that she deals with pensions and valuations at that meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
My point was, I think you've answered it already with Councillor Hellier, that the testing and discussions are ongoing at the moment, which means that we are on track for November. So, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there... yeah, Catherine?
Yeah, thank you. I have three questions. I guess the first is to kind of understand what were the issues with the two disclaimed opinions you gave in the previous 2 years. Was that an issue with staff from EY, something about here at Crawley, or a bit of both? And then, you know, some understanding, because there's no progress report here, you know, what I guess be really good to know is whatever issues that arose there that kept you from completing your work, how is that progressing now through this audit? Is there anything the committee should be aware of where questions aren't being answered or working papers are not in a appropriate order, or is there an issue with staffing? And then the third question is around the closing balances, which you've referred to before. And I think you're indicating that it's likely to be another disclaimed opinion, and it's to do with closing balances, but that's likely to be with reserves and nothing else. And I guess I'd like some understanding, did I get that correct? And if it's reserves, what would need to happen for you to get confident in the closing balances of reserves? What is it that's standing in your way that you're not able to gain that confidence?
Yeah, sure. So when we did present our audit completion reports for the previous years, we did set out in terms of the context of the 22-23 audit and the 23-24 audit in terms of the reasons for that. But I'll just try to summarise. So I actually took on responsibility for the external audit in relation to the 23-24 financial year. So prior to that, the 21-22, and there's been significant issues within the local government audit market for a variety of reasons, which have been set out in a number of reports which members may be aware of, and which I've previously referred to, such as the Redmond report. And within that, it's kind of highlighted that there are some of the issues that have impacted the local authority audit market. Has been capacity within audit firms on a national basis. There have been complexity in terms of some of the accounting arrangements at some local authorities. There have been preparedness issues of at some local authorities in terms of preparing the accounts. There have been commercial arrangements which some local authorities have entered into. There's this whole myriad of reasons as to which has impacted on the local government audit reporting. So for the 21-22 opinion, I can double check and come back if anything I say is incorrect at this stage, but 21-22 opinion was given at a later stage in terms of when it should have been, and then following on from that, as part of the local government reset position, there were set dates that were outlined in terms of getting the 22-23 accounts completed. So that was the reset date was the 13th of December 2024, and then the for the 23-24 accounts, the reset date for 23-24 was Feb of this year, and then for 24-25 the reset date is February next year. So with the 21-22 opinion having been issued later on in the timeline, it was viewed that we didn't then have the time and the capacity to undertake the work that was required by the reset date for 22-23. So we issued a disclaimed opinion for 22-23. We for 23-24 we were looking to undertake our audit in so we were looking to start the audit in July, August last year. That's for kind of reason, but there was a delay in providing the accounts or preparing the accounts for Crawley for 23-24, so we didn't get the accounts for audit when it was initially planned to undertake the audit. And when the accounts were then available, we'd had moved on to auditing other local authorities. So effectively, the slot for Crawley was missed, and we moved to a disclaim position for the 23-24 accounts. So 24-25 is now the year when where we've received the accounts on time. We're now, as I've said, we're in at this moment in time undertaking our procedures. The FRC, which I did highlight at the last meeting when I presented the audit completion report, has outlined, prepared a paper which does outline the considerations which auditors make when a disclaimed opinion is issued, and in a usual process, when that's the case, you have the first year where the opinion's been disclaimed, and because of the impact of opening balances that have a subsequent implication for the next two years, then those following 2 years are also disclaimed, and it's then in the third year when you can move from a disclaimed to a qualified opinion usually, and then in the fourth year you move to a unqualified opinion. So it's not necessarily the work that we're doing now is looking to gain assurances where we can particularly on the closing balances, where the gap in assurances is in respect of opening balances, and what it then has an impact on is particularly on the reserves position, and gaining assurances on the reserves, and what some of the movements have been in the reserves position is where, and that's where that's where the guidance which I referred to earlier on, which has come out in terms of rebuilding assurances, is in its and there are complexities within local authorities because of the way that your local authority accounts are structured and the accounting for reserves, and I've just highlighted two examples of that earlier on in responses to questions. So you've got the issues in terms of so for example on pensions, and for example on the capital side, so on valuations, where the impact of some of those transactions, rather than hitting your income and expenditure account and effectively being a charge on local taxpayers, it gets reversed out through the reserve, so it doesn't actually hit the amounts collected from local taxpayers, and it's those complexities which kind of has an implication for rebuilding assurances. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Thank you. Would you like to come back?
Yeah. So will the committee know when you produce your report, like what you have assurance over and what you don't, or will it just be kind of vague, which is where we are now?
No. So the committee didn't receive a similar report which to what we issued at other local authorities for 23-24, where we did undertake the work which was planned, and within the appendix of our completion report it highlighted, summarised the work that we'd done, and we used a RAG rating to outline, whether planned procedures had been undertaken and the assurances that we'd had on the closing position. So we'll be in our audit results report for the 24-25 audit, you'll be receiving something similar to that, which will then provide, hopefully, in a more graphical and easy to understand format. The areas, listing out the areas of the key areas of the financial statements and the assurances that we've obtained.
And when I asked on the progress of the report, are things going well? Are your questions being answered, or are you not at that point yet?
Yes, at the moment, the audit is progressing to plan. Questions are being responded to. There's a good level of dialogue and an interaction between the audit team and the finance team.
Thank you. Is that all? All right, cool. Are there any other councillors who want to make any comments? Okay. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the audit planning report be noted. Do we all agree with this? Okay, great. So I officially move that the audit planning report be noted. Normally the Vice Chair would second this, but due to the absence of Councillor Belbin, can I ask one of the committee to please do this? Yeah, thank you. Cool. So can I have a show of hands for the motion? Cool. Motion's been carried. Is that right? All right, cool. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, cool. We will now move on to the internal audit annual conclusion, which starts on page 57 of the agenda pack. The conclusion at Appendix A starts on page 59. I will ask Yona Bond, the Deputy Head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to please present the report.
Thank you, Chair, and finally, good evening, everyone. The report in front of you is the annual conclusion for the 24-25 year, as ended the 31st of March 2025. The report is for you as a committee to consider and note. The very high-level key points that you'll want to take from this report for reassurance and comfort is that overall for the year we have again been able to conclude with a reasonable assurance opinion. all the audit work has been completed in line with the relevant standards, which for 24-25 was the public sector internal audit standards, and we fully delivered the plan as revised during the course of the year. If I may, I'll just draw you to key points within the report document itself. On pages 60 through to 63, sections 1 to 4, as usual, that's just some general background information for you in respect of the audit, the plan, how we operate. Sections 5 through to 8 are new sections this year, which we've brought in, just gearing up for the global internal audit standards, and that's on page 63 to 64. This is where we've got sections now on resourcing implications, independence, impairments, and limitations of scope. Again, all positive statements through that report, in that nothing has impacted through either of those sections for the work that we've undertaken during the course of the year. Excuse me. Page 65, section 9 is where we set out in more detail the opinion and how it's been arrived at during the course of the year. Reasonable assurance opinion, as I've already stated. And I think the thing to draw out as well is actually there was a significant amount of audit work undertaken during the year that contributed towards that opinion. There were 17 individual audits undertaken across the breadth of council services during the course of the year. Pages 68 to 70 in the report is where we set out for you in a bit more detail any of those reviews undertaken during the course of the year where we arrived at either a limited or no assurance audit opinion. So during the course of the year, there were 4 such audits. Cleaning and clearance had a limited assurance opinion. That has previously come to committee within I think the last progress report, which you would have seen in March. 2 further limited assurance opinions since that time. One on the audit review we undertook regarding commercial properties, one on car parking, and we have one no assurance opinion this time round, which was within housing, which is on the regulatory compliance water safety checks. With all of these limited no assurance opinions, as with all other audits undertaken during the course of the year, we are satisfied with management's engagement with those audits, with the findings, with the actions that they've identified to address the weaknesses or compliance issues that we may have found, an appropriate timescale for implementation of those management actions has been put in place. And again, for you as a committee, we will track the implementation of all of those actions through to completion and regularly report back to you as a committee the progress on those through the progress reports that we subsequently will bring to you. Any management action stays on that progress report until such time as we have an indication from management that it has been implemented. And I think going forward, Vanessa is the audit manager, as well as Keith Phillips, who will be your senior lead from SIAP for the Crawley audit, will be engaging both with Caroline and Amanda, who is also here this evening, in particular in and around a detailed follow-up of the no assurance audit opinion. Again, so comfort can hopefully be gained to demonstrate a positive direction of travel on that. Page 73 of the report in your pack rather is our KPIs, and just very positively to demonstrate that we've met those KPIs during the course of the year, so that's good. And finally, but not least, the last section, as always, is our acknowledgement. Again, I'd just like to extend our thanks to the senior management of Crawley and all staff that have been involved in what has, not an insignificant amount of audit work during the course of the year. We can't get round and do this work and into the depth that we are able to do without the engagement of all the staff involved. We do very much work on a participative audit approach, and that's what yields the best benefits within those audits that we do. And again, just to reflect again back on the areas of limited or no assurance, as members, you shouldn't be alarmed with those limited and no assurances coming out. Again, we have very much a risk assessed and a risk-based audit plan, and it's indicative of management's engagement through that planning process that these areas are not shied away from in terms of being subject to audit coverage. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. That is much appreciated. I will now open this item for debate. When referring to a page, please reference the page number of the agenda pack rather than the page number of the individual report. So please indicate to speak by raising your hand. Councillor Hellier, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I guess it's just really seeking reassurance in terms of things like the water safety checks on there, because it sort of then filters through to the risk register sort of later on. And I guess there was 169 overdue. That's on page 70. I guess we want reassurance to know that when it is on the risk register, that it isn't just having the date just move forward, and that action is actually taken to actually address that. So what reassurance could we have as a committee that that's indeed the case?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hellier. So we naturally accept the audit's findings and have taken many steps to ensure that we've rectified the situation. So from those 169 blocks that were overdue at the time of audit, at the present time there is only one block overdue its water safety risk assessment, and that is due for the 12th of this month. So we've worked hard to identify, together with SIAP, all outstanding blocks for risk assessment and the remedial actions, and ensure that the mistakes we made that brought us, the root cause analysis that brought us to this point, was not a single source of truth, too many data sets that were unclear and contradictory in some places in their naming conventions. We've moved away from and ensured that we're using a single asset source that we've identified all risk assessments from, and this is how we're mitigating the risk.
Thank you much. Amanda, thank you.
So just for clarification, we obviously have a housing management system that we're still embedding, and this information will be, the single source of truth will be our housing management system. That will go live by the end of October. The root cause is the fact, as Jeff has said, that we were holding multiple informations in multiple places in different formats, and our water contractor was also holding the information as well when it came together. We had a mismatch of data. We have thoroughly checked that. Obviously the benefit is that what is now going into Activate, ready for go live, we know is absolutely accurate and will remain as such. You'll all know as well, because you've seen the regulatory judgment, that this was picked up by the regulator for social housing as well, and we're able to give them a level of assurance. But it is one of the things that the regulator for social housing will also be tracking through their provider improvement meetings, because we are into that phase now, and they will be seeking assurance from us as well.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
It's not really a question because the question has been answered that I was going to answer, but to hear that turnaround is actually really, really good. So thank you for that. And to know that that's going to be an ongoing thing that's checked is reassuring. So thank you.
Amanda, thank you.
And just to add as well, no, I think you alluded to it, but we are going to have a retest of the audit in Q4. So obviously the aim is there, obviously not preempting the outcome, but the aim is there that it'll be a very different outcome to what we've got.
Thank you. Are there any other committee members who wish to comment? Catherine, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I read the report with interest, and it's really good how well Crawley uses internal audit to look at areas that cause them concern, and seeing a few limited and unfortunately a no, I think shows a very good use of internal audit. Specifically for the no insurance, I'm just interested to know how it got onto the internal audit program. What was the initiator of that?
So when we started working with SIAP, not long after I came here, Iona and I sat down and we planned and scoped out all the audits that Crawley Homes wanted. Obviously, all the Big Six compliance audits make it on there, but we were trying to phase them throughout the 3-year period, so we didn't have them all in the first year. So, for example, we had gas in the first year, electric in the second year, for example. And it just so happened that water safety was one of the last compliant audits we had, and unfortunately it was the one that had the lesser assurance. But I guess it featured last on the list of compliance audits because actually in the scheme of the Big Six it is the lesser risk, but of course it was the one that came out with the no assurance, which was really unfortunate. But like I say, it's going to be retested. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any? Yep, Catherine, thank you.
And then I guess a question really for SIAP, looking at the themes that arose over the many audits that were undertaken this year, can you draw anything from those that were limited or no assurance, or any other kind of weaknesses that were raised in your reasonable? Were there any themes that arose from that?
Thank you. I mean, that's a very pertinent question because, again, new into the conclusion report now is a section on are there any common themes coming up through the audit work in reviewing the audits undertaken last year and where the where the management actions were arising. There wasn't anything common or systemic across a core area that of the work undertaken that kind of would feature in that common themes. That would be any bigger issues if there was an inherent governance failing across all of the audits. That would come into anything on common themes. I mean, every audit usually will have a degree of non-compliance, which is where the management actions arise. But that of itself is just standard and wouldn't qualify as being an identifiable common theme. That's reserved for any, as I say, any big themes like governance failings or a failure of risk management, or say anything regarding safeguarding. That would be identified as a common theme. So in short, to answer your question, that has been considered as pulling this report together for the year. But again, very pleasingly, no common themes identified.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? Okay, great. Sorry. Okay, great. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the committee note the report. Do we all agree with that recommendation? Okay, great. That doesn't need to be here. Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Cool. We will now move on to the revised internal audit charter for the years of 2025 to 2026 report, which starts on page 77 on the agenda pack. The charter at Appendix A starts on page 79. I will ask Anna Bond, Deputy Head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that in March, when I brought to you the internal audit plan for 25-26, as usual, that was supported with the internal audit charter for the same year. Since that time, we've had some changes within SIAP, its senior management level, which has given us the opportunity to have a look and reevaluate portfolios and shuffle around some of the responsibilities within SMT to bring a refresh across portfolios. And we've also had some further clarification and guidance on the differentials in responsibilities between the audit committee and the corporate management team. So in terms of that, we have updated the charter for the year. The number of changes actually made to the charter are small in number, but they are important, and therefore hence bringing the charter back to you as a committee to reapprove, because in line with the standards, it is a document that as a committee you approve. I'll just run you through the changes. On page 84, under responsibilities, we've always set out previously that the deputy head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership is your chief internal auditor. As required now under GIAS, we need to put the name to that position. With the change in SMT responsibilities, your chief internal auditor going forward for Crawley is Keith Phillips, who is a long-standing audit manager within the partnership, recently promoted onto our senior management team, and Keith holds the title of Assistant Head of Audit Partnership. Keith is on leave this evening, otherwise he would have been here and I would have been able to introduce him to you as your new Chief Internal Auditor, but I have no doubt he'll be here for the next Audit Committee with Vanessa, where I'm sure he will very ably be able to introduce himself to you as a committee. So if I then take you to pages 94 and 95 within the pack, and this is where we list out the respective roles and responsibilities for your corporate management team in respect of the key documents and processes for audit, along with yourselves as the audit committee. So just quickly going through the changes in terms of, I think it's just the first 2 or 3 bullet points for corporate management team in respect of the audit charter, the audit mandate, which is contained within the charter, the risk-based plan, the audit strategy, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail in a short while, and the annual conclusion. They are for the corporate management team to note rather than approve. And for yourselves as an audit committee, the only changes in your responsibilities relate to, in terms of what was in the charter approved in March, is that in terms of the audit strategy, that's a document for you to note rather than approve. And again, in terms of the annual conclusion report that we've just gone through, it is a document for you to consider and not approve. And they are the only changes to the charter made from that presented to yourselves in March.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now open this item for debate. Again, when referring to a page, please reference the page number of the agenda pack rather than the page number of the individual reports. Are there any committee members who wish to make comment? Councillor Russell?
It's only very, very brief, and thank you very much for that, because the only thing I'd written down on this is what, if anything, are the key changes. But when you've gone through those, and thank you for doing that, you say that our role as the Audit Committee will be to note rather than approve on a couple of things. Who will be the approvers if it's not us?
So again, the only two changes for you are in respect of the strategy and then the annual conclusion, for you to note one and consider the other. In terms of the strategy, it is SIAP's audit strategy. And as the host partner for the partnership, Hampshire is the approver of the audit strategy. As a client within the partnership, you have been consulted on key aspects of that document, but Hampshire as the host approve, and hence that comes to you just for information. Sorry, and again, the other one, before I forget, is the annual conclusion. Again, it's my annual conclusion. It's my opinion, and therefore it's not necessarily a document for you to approve, because it's my opinion. But you obviously need to consider it, because that might affect your understanding of the plan that then subsequently comes to you, and your ability to not so much challenge, but just form your view on the adequacy of that plan coming to you.
That's great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you very much. Are there any other committee members who wish to make comment? Okay, great. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendations are that the committee provide input into the approval of the advised charter. I therefore move that the comments made by the committee be taken into account, and that the revised internal charter of 2025 to 2026 be approved. And can I ask a committee member to second, please? Yep, Councillor Hellier, thank you. Right. Oh, yeah. So can I have a show of hands for the motion, please? Cool, thank you. Thank you, that motion is carried. Okay, we will now move on to the internal audit strategy for 2025 to 2028 report, which starts on page 99 of the agenda pack. The strategy at Appendix A starts on page 101, and the feedback and prioritisation of objectives at Appendix B starts on page 106. I will ask Fiona Bond, Deputy Head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the audit strategy 25-28 is brought to you for information and for you to know as a committee. It's one of the new documents we were required to bring in with the changes to the move to the global internal audit standards. As a multi-service provider, as you can appreciate, we don't want to have 30 plus separate audit strategies, one for each of our clients. So we have come together, we've consulted with all individual partners, sought views on what the key priorities were for each from its internal audit service, and that's helped shape, where relevant, the strategy that we've brought to you this evening. Excuse me. As already indicated earlier, the strategy has been approved by Hampshire County Council as the host partner, and it is circulated to all other stakeholders within the partnership for information. Attached at Appendix A to the covering report for yourselves is the actual strategy for 2025-28. That's attached as Appendix A. And Appendix B just gives you the results of the feedback on the priority for objectives that are included within the Charter. Not the Charter, the strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I will now open this item up for debate. Again, when referring to a page, please refer to the page number of the agenda pack rather than the page number of the individual report. Please indicate your hand if you wish to speak. Councillor Barrett, thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see the new strategy. I just wondered if you could provide any more detail on the frequency of reviewing it. The report says it will be periodically reviewed, and at a minimum this will take place in response to significant organisational change. But I just wondered, had any further thought been given to sort of specific timeframes for that, which I think will be important for accountability? Thank you.
Thank you. A very pertinent question. I would imagine, she says, as an SMT, we will at least review it as a document every year to make sure that going into the forthcoming financial year, it still stays relevant. Obviously, the charter itself only has a 3-year lifespan, so there will be a very big formal update, refresh and renew at the end of 2028. But as indicated in the document, if there are any significant changes within the development of the partnership, within the development of the audit profession, any changes that might be brought in to the internal audit regime, then that would all be reflected within the internal audit strategy as required.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the committee who... Catherine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think 2 questions on the strategy. The first is how will you measure if you're successful in implementing your strategy or not? I see actions there, but not really measures of success. And the second is I can see why you pulled out 3 of 7 priorities and how that came about. I just wondered what attention is given to 4 to 7, or is it none?
Thank you for those 2 very pertinent questions. The measurability, again, we've got the action plan, we've got the plans that we're delivering every year for each of our councils. We'll use that to enable feedback and measurement and review on the objectives within the strategy. That will enable us to see whether we are hitting that target, whether we need to change any of our approaches going forward. So that'll be very much an internal measurement. If there are any changes that we identify that we would need to make in terms of direction of travel and what's in that strategy as a document, then again, those changes would first go through Hampshire for approval and then come back out to everybody for further information, identifying the changes that we have made to the Charter. In terms of the other 4 objectives, we will very much keep a watching brief on those, again, to see if any dynamics within the delivery of the audit work we're doing, any changes in the dynamics of just the profession, generally what's happening. We must be mindful, obviously, of there's a few big changes on the horizon regarding local government reorganisation and what, There's no indication yet if that's going to impact on requirements with internal audit as a profession. Obviously, where we provide that service is going to change. And again, we will just reflect on whether any of the objectives in our strategy need to be reconsidered, adjusted or amended, and any changes made again to those we would bring through via an updated strategy.
Thank you very much. Would you like to come back or? All right, great. Are there any other comments by the committee? Okay. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation that the committee note this report, the internal audit strategy for 2025 to 2028. So do we all agree with this recommendation? Okay, great. Yeah, cool. We will now move on to the internal audit progress report, which starts on page 107 of the agenda pack. The progress report at the Appendix A starts on page 109. I will ask Vanessa Anthony, the audit manager for Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to please present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So, as outlined, this is our new style progress report, which enables us to conform with the global internal audit standards. So there have been some changes to previous versions of the progress report you've received. The key points to note are under section 4 on page 112 of the pack. We've just flagged there our position in relation to resources. I do have some updates since the report was prepared, just to update you on. So we have filled a number of the positions at both auditor and senior auditor level, and we do have some contingency in place to backfill any gaps if we need to call upon those. The only real impact we see there being for Crawley is there might be a slight delay in delivery with some of the Q2 or Q3 audit reviews, just to allow us to onboard our new members of staff, but we don't see those being significant delays or impacts. We will hopefully get on track with that later on in the year. The rolling work programme on page 113 and 114 now includes the key dates to improve the transparency about those reviews. There's been one addition to the plan, which is in section 8, page 115 of the pack. That's in relation to the high privilege access management review, where we've split out the finance and revs and bends part of the previous year's audit, and that's been pulled into from the 24-25 plan into this year. In relation to the analysis of the live audit reviews in section 11, which is on pages 116 and 117, the update on that table is we've now included the categorisation of high, medium and low actions across the various stages, hopefully to provide that bit more clarity. And Annex 3 contains performance measures for the internal audit service. Those will be updated on a rolling basis with each progress report, but just to flag up that measures 5 to 8 will remain static, as they were based on the result of the annual survey for Crawley. So that's an annual scoring on those performance measures, but all of the others will be updated with each progress report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will now open this item for debate. Again, when referring to a page, please refer to the page number of the agenda pack rather than the page number of the individual report. Please indicate your hand if you wish to. Please indicate if you wish to speak. Councillor Hellier, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I just really wanted to seek a little bit of clarification in relation to the table on page 116. which has got obviously overdue, pending, agreed, and then the assurance opinions on there. But looking at the report dates, some of them are quite old, so March 23 is an example on there, and that's compliance with gas safety for housing stock, which again has got a red high sort of overdue point against it. How again, it's really seeking reassurance in terms of the risk register, I guess what you would call it, as to how this is progressing, because, you know, sort of the dates being so, you know, so old, particularly with something that's, you know, a safety feature. I guess we'd want to know that all our residents were not put at risk as a result of some of this. So it's just really seeking some more reassurance, and I'm sure Amanda will come back to me on that.
Amanda, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hellier. Just on, there's one outstanding action, and I can assure you that we're not putting tenants at risk by the outstanding action. The outstanding action is to do with the data sharing agreement with our gas contractor. So it's not around outstanding compliance checks, service visits, etc. But I will let Jeff come in a little bit more on that, because we do actually have a bit of a live update for you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hellier. The data sharing agreements, we're in a long-term partnering contract with Liberty Gas, who deliver our gas safety work. Much time was spent trying to locate the data sharing agreement that was set up at the time of the contract. It was referenced in the agreements, in the contractual agreements, but wasn't located. So we've been working with our partners in legal services together with the service provider to draft a new data sharing agreement. So some time was spent looking for the original document. Some time, and I apologise, it sat with me for a little while and didn't progress. It stagnated a little, but we have got it to a point where we have an agreement on a data sharing agreement that will go to the service provider. It was put together with them, so they will sign that document and this action will be closed.
Thank you for those answers. Are there any other committee members who wish to make comment? Catherine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess at the beginning on page, what page is this? 114. In that table, you split it in two bits, and I'm not sure what the difference is between like the first section. I think it might be quarter one is the first section, and the second section is quarter 2, 3, and 4. So that's one of my questions. I was maybe concerned at the lack of progress on the audit plan for this year, because we're in September, and I think you referred to having some staffing issues, but there's been no audit completed at all, and that just seems to be quite slow. And I imagine actually you were quite slow at finishing 24, 25 audit, and maybe that's having a knock-on effect, but it's going to make it, I think, very challenging for you, and then also for the staff at Crawley, to service so many audits in a very short period of time. I was also kind of concerned along the lines of the questions that were just asked previously, that there's an awful lot of actions that don't have any update, and management actions are really important, and if you agree you're going to do it, you should do it, or if they become dated and no longer relevant, maybe they need to be reviewed. But the increase in actions outstanding were significantly more than in the last report that went to March. I wondered if there could be a comment on that. And then just to where the actions were rated at low, medium, and high, I think, just to confirm that's a rating given by officers rather than by SIAP. So, you know, if the officers felt it was high, you know, you'd like to think I understood the explanation actually that was just given, that was helpful. But you'd think you want to complete them, and actually quite a lot are outstanding.
Thank you, Councillor. So in relation to your first question about progress made, currently there's only one audit review from the Q1, Q2 plan that hasn't actually started. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a time delay. This reports as at the end of July. We're obviously in September now, so things have continued to move. We are currently allocating, and we've got a scoping meeting for a Q3 audit already in the diaries this week. So I think partially the answer is because of the time lag. So the only audit that hasn't actually started yet is savings realisation, and we'll be looking to resource that, you know, as a priority before we start allocating Q3 work. In relation to your question about the ratings, so those absolutely, the prioritisation of all of the actions come from the officers. It isn't something that SIAP rate, so those will be the actions, ratings and prioritisations given by the officers, and those are agreed by at director level as well before those reports are finalised. There was a third part of the question in there somewhere. Could you just remind me of that question, please?
Probably a question more for officers. There were a lot of updates that are saying that no update has been provided in the management actions, and I wondered if, you know, there was a lack of a timing issue or something that resulted in that appearing that way.
I will let officers obviously answer that in part. As part of our progress report to the March committee, we did flag that very issue around actions that continue to be overdue. I'm sure officers will want to jump in and provide a response to that, but we do continue to chase those. We continue to engage with officers to get their updates to enable us to bring something to committee to obviously give you that assurance. And we will be looking to, as well as looking back, which is what we've historically always done for the progress reports, we're looking to be more proactive in ensuring officers have plenty of notice to provide updates to committee so that we have a complete picture to report back to you. I'll see if anyone else on the officer side wants to come in.
Thank you, Chair. There has been a bit of an issue with this update from a sort of communications point of view. I think emails have gone to the wrong places because some of the overdue ones have actually been completed. So I don't know whether the actual officers dealing with them sent those emails to the heads of service, and the heads of service have presumed that they've gone to the auditors, or whether there's just been a mix-up. I mean, I would suggest we'll produce the sort of, if we can produce the overdue ones, a more up-to-date one within the next month, if possible, if SIAP have got, and then you'll have an up-to-date position. Because at the moment there does seem to be a little bit of crosswire, and we're going to look at a new system of doing it. Now that we've got SharePoint at the council, we'll try and coordinate it a bit more, because at the moment there's lots and lots of emails flying backwards and forwards, and it is a bit of a cottage industry to kind of keep track of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this report? Oh, Amanda, yes, do you want to speak?
Yeah, just from a divisional point of view, because I'm aware that Crawley Homes have got a number of outstanding red actions and a number that have been overdue for a while. Just kind of picking on the electrical safety one, for example, that remains red, and that is to do with outstanding compliance checks and passing cases through to our legal team where we can't get access. I mean, that's come on significantly since this audit was undertaken, and we're now at 98.9% compliance. So we've been moving to that position for the last year. It's about a year, isn't it? And we have a team that meets fortnightly, might even be more frequent. It's weekly. We did, and I had attended those for a time, and as I saw those kind of progressing, I've dropped out and left it to officers, but still as a senior management team, and Jeff and his team will provide a compliance update regularly, and as a senior management team we look at compliance once a quarter. We actually also look at audit updates once a quarter as well. We have a specific topic, our senior management team, and we manage all our audit actions through MS lists and update them so we can kind of track what's happening. So we do have quite a lot going on at a divisional level as well. This year, I'm just going to reference the regulator of social housing. We have been quite disrupted this year. With that, it's taken kind of 6 months out of the service that we've been trying to then kind of get back up to speed. But most of the ones that we've got outstanding that are reds, we do have updates. I'm going to let Jeff come in because a lot of these are related to our system as well that we're still trying to embed. But phase 2 of the system has taken a little bit longer. And we had authority from the Corporate Project Assurance Group to extend that project because we weren't quite over the line by the end of the last financial year, which was anticipated, and we needed 6 months more and to resource that project for 6 months more. So I'm just going to let Jeff come in on that.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. So as we discussed with the water safety audit, one of the big risks with all of the Crawley Homes compliance audits is having our data, our property, our asset data within the housing management system. We've identified that as a red in almost all of the audits because we were working either off of sort of legacy databases or Excel spreadsheets. So when the housing system, whilst the assets are in there, when we're operating out of there with the functionality of the system, running the compliance programs, a number of those high-risk actions are all going to come off at the same time because we're testing the compliance module, if you like, operates across the board. So effectively, we've been testing it in the test environment and are bringing it into live by the 1st of October. So when this has been realised, we will see all of these actions on the compliance side, the red ones certainly, then dissipate and reduce significantly across the compliance work streams.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. Oh, sorry, yep.
Just to come in, because I think Councillor Hellier referred to it and also Catherine referred to it just in terms of some of the outstanding ones, and one of the older ones is the driver checks one. And I think just touching on the point I think that Catherine made around actions going stale and being needing to be kind of reviewed and refreshed. Well, I think that's probably a good example of one where the initial audit kind of showed the basic kind of non-compliances. And I think Iona talked about the kind of testing and that audits will show that, and it showed the kind of non-compliances. And this was quite early on and the council's done some learning in terms of the audits. And what it did for that particular audit was kind of say, well, non-compliance. So the immediate management action is to achieve compliance, and we set a kind of ambitious date. But I think the learning has been that we've then looked at kind of subsequently why is there non-compliance, and that's identified process issues and also capacity issues. And in this context, it's the capacity of actually having trained people to assess and to carry out various checks. So that's a good example, I think, of where as a management team we've assessed how we're going to go about something, but actually we've now reviewed that and it's expanded into a much bigger project. So whilst we have made progress on the process stuff and getting there in terms of the capacity, it's still an ongoing one, and we're working towards compliance on that. And just to touch on the risk point, I think Catherine, you asked the question of who sets the kind of risk levels, and Vanessa answered that. But yeah, we do keep the risk rating under review as a corporate management team, and the driver checks one is a good example where, as I said, learning wise early on, we said, well, it's non-compliance, it's a high risk. Whereas now, looking at the process and looking at how it's done, and also what other measures kind of ensure kind of driver safety, I think we're in dialogue now as a corporate management team in terms of possibly bringing that to a medium risk, and we'll update CAP in terms of what corporate management team come up with. Hope that helps. Councillor Ellie.
Thank you for that. And it was just in relation to what you've just been saying, really. How does that, in relation to the driver training, how does that affect the insurance side of things?
We have obviously our obligations in terms of insurance and what standards need to be maintained. Obviously, all our drivers have driving licenses. Our policy says that if there's any change to their driver status, they're to declare that and to let us know. So that's the kind of basic default. What we're talking about here are checks, which you need and you want them to be in place so that you pick things up regularly on an annual basis in relation to kind of general driver checks. But the other vehicle assessments, the more detailed things, these could be done every 3 years, and they're really just to check. So if someone joined the organisation, generally this applies to the fleet drivers, so they know what they're doing on their. When they join, they'll be trained in terms of their vehicle. This is really like a checkup almost. So it's very necessary. We get that, but also we have to kind of put it in context as well. That each one of these assessments, I think, takes 90 minutes. And if you think about the fleet being over 100, 150, that all takes time. And this is on top of the operational day service delivery. So that's the kind of discovery that, as an organisation, we found that the capacity wasn't there originally. We've had to identify that, and we're training up more assessors at the moment. Okay.
Thank you for those contributions. Are there any other committee members who wish to make a comment? Okay, great. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. There are 2 recommendations set out in the report, and I will deal with these separately. I move recommendation 1, that the report be received and that the audit progress report July 2025 be noted. Can I have a committee member to second this, please? Yep, Councillor Heather. Thank you. May I have a show of hands for this motion, please? Okay, great. Motion has been carried. Recommendation 2 is that the committee approve the adjustments to the internal audit plan, the 2025 to 2026. Do we all agree with those recommendations? Okay, great. So we don't need a formal vote. Yeah, cool. We will now move on to the internal quality assessment report. The external quality assessment report, which starts on page 135 of the agenda pack, the quality assurance and improvement program at Appendix A starts on page 141. I will ask Ona Bond, the Deputy Head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present the strategy.
Thank you, Chair. Gosh, it's been a heavy internal audit agenda meeting tonight, but you'll be glad that this is our last paper, and it is a bit of a mouthful because it's the internal audit, external external quality assessment. The paper in front of you, again, similarly to the audit strategy, it's come to you for information purposes. As a requirement of the Global Internal Audit Standards, as it was previously under the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, there is a requirement for internal audit providers to be externally quality assessed every 5 years. And for us, our external quality assessment is due before the end of March 2026. So we're into the last few months. Unfortunately for us, it's right at the beginning of our journey on GS. So it's been particularly intensive to pull all the documents together, etc., etc. However, the paper in front of you, as I say this evening, just sets out for you the process that we are going through for our quality assessment, setting out all the options that we had for the provider of the assessment, what the various options for the assessments were, in setting out, who the potential providers are. I can update you now that we have selected a provider and it's JC Training. And again, the paper just sets out the timings for the quality assessment. The bulk of the assessment will be done leading up to December. It starts really in earnest from next month. We're already pulling together all the provisional information that the assessor is requiring, and the results of the assessment will come to you as a committee, to the most timely audit committee, following the results of the assessment hitting our door, so to speak. The appendix that is attached is just outlining that again in a bit more detail what the process is for the assessment. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the report. Are there any councillors or independent members who wish to make comment? Okay, great.
Just good luck with it.
Thank you. You know, so the auditors do get audited. Payback, I think you would call it.
Okay, great. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the committee notes arrangements for the impending external assessment of the Southern Internal Audit Partnership against the Global Internal Audit Standards in the UK public sector. So are all committee members happy with this recommendation? Okay, great. We are just going to do a swap over of staff for our next report, so please bear with us. Well, after our changeover, we will now move on to the update on counter fraud, which starts on page 151 of the agenda pack. I will ask Stuart Small, the Deputy Fraud Manager, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is for or describes the activity of the corporate fraud investigation team for the period 1st of March 2025 to the 20th of August 2025. All outcome figures are taken from our closed cases. The recommendation is that the committee note the report. If we go straight to 4.1, this is the current investigation case types that we have at the moment. As you can see, it's a lot lower than it was last time we were here, mainly due to the right to buy cases that we had at the time. We currently have 38 cases open, ranging from council tax support, housing cases, 1 fly tip cases, and still we get some right to buy applications. 4.2 is during the reported period what the team have achieved so far. This is under the housing fraud side of things. It's in 2 sections. The first, or the second part of it, sorry, is 2024-25, so the whole year. So during that period, the team recovered 14 council properties, 25 right to buys were prevented, and there were 9 allocations prevented, saving a total of £2,879,500 for the previous year. The first column is for the in period, so from the 1st of April to 20th of August this year. And as you can see, the team have already recovered 8 properties, 7 right to buys have been prevented, and the allocations prevented is 4, so that totals just over £913,000. The price per unit on the right to buy we put in there is various. It depends on how long a right to, or a council tenant has been in situ, how much discount they get. So it's why it's various, but that's the total that we have prevented. Number 4.3 is what our council tax and business rates inspectors do. So again, it's in 2 parts. 2024-25. So for council tax, new money coming in, new billable rates, was 220,449. And so far this year, it's already 180,674. We have just completed a data match of electoral register and single person discount properties, where a property has 2 people registered to vote but is on the single person discount. So we check all of them. I think there's about 400 that we had this year, which is significantly higher than we've had previously. Non-domestic rates for the period last year was just under 5.845 million. This year it's a lot lower. It's 1.3 million at the moment. Last year's figures, said to Caroline before, did include the town hall, which is why it was so high. So we were a little bit, we were to blame for that in one way. Point 5 is we like to put a significant case in for the councillors to look at. This was a investigation that started due to a right to buy application. The tenant put in an application to buy. Fraud investigator went and did a visit. Everything appeared okay with it, but they weren't happy. And then we received an anonymous referral as well to say that this person wasn't living in their council home. So we had a right to buy application that we believed to be false, potential sublet non-oc of the property. The investigator, as it says on here, visited, spoke to the people, collated quite a bit of evidence, and the person was interviewed under caution, where they didn't admit to subletting the property, but they did voluntarily offer to hand the keys back, and the property came back into our stock. So I put on there the total savings on that case is just over 130,000. That includes the right to buy discount that they would have got, which would have been 102,400, and recovering the property. So we said before, we class it as 27,300, which is based on how long people are in temporary accommodation. That's the report. If there are any questions on anything in there, I'd like to help if I can.
Thank you for your report and the presentation. I will now open this item for debate, so please indicate if you wish to speak. Councillor Russell. Councillor Arner.
It's not a question. It's just, I love these reports and it's just fantastic. And putting the case in, saying to my wife before I came tonight, it's almost like Channel 5 TV. It's just brilliant. But being serious, whilst you say the figures are nominal, the savings or notional are just fantastic. So again, absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Councillor Arner.
I was just going to ask about the report. Like, I've been reading about it. People have been subletting their house. And then you also already mentioned that they do sublet in Crawley. And also that people, you let their houses at Airbnb. Does that happen in Crawley as well? Have you ever investigated a case?
I don't think we've ever had a fraud case with an Airbnb property. It is something that I regularly check Airbnb on the map and see whether it's council properties. So I do go through that probably once every 3 or 4 months just to see if there's any that are in our area. So we do look out for that. It's something we look out. I know other councils do have it a lot more. Normally the likes of Arran, Worth in Chichester, where people are going for, especially in summer holidays, down to the seaside. It is something we're aware of. We haven't had any referrals and we haven't located any yet.
Thank you. Councillor Ashraf.
Thank you very much for the report. You mentioned about the data matching. I just wanted to ask whether we adopt a proactive approach where we do this routinely, or if someone reports us. And also, are there any other fraud awareness training, these sort of things in place? And the general public and the staff, are they aware of the reporting channels? Thank you.
The fraud awareness training that we do provide to most teams, we design it specifically for that team, how we can help them. We will have training, I believe, for councillors at some point. I think there was a slideshow previously which we just need to update, and we can then run through it with yourselves again. The first part of your question was the data matching. We do that, the electoral roll and single person discount, we do that once a year, and it normally results in a saving of around about £100,000. Again, some of that is for West Sussex, that's the total savings, so it goes West Sussex to police, but it's normally around about 100,000. This year has been very productive on that side of things.
And reporting channels, do we advertise this to the public as well, how they can report?
Yeah, it's on our website. It is something that we do ask to be put out there. When we do have cases that are successful, we will publicise it. So it is out there for people to know that we do it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure, targets is the right word to associate with fraud cases, but do you have any targets about how many cases you think you should uncover over a course of a year? And just my second question, I found the fly tip one interesting. I just wondered what that referred to, fraud with fly tipping.
So if I start with the fly tip question, we don't investigate fly tip, as the referrals do not come to us. What generally happens is our community wardens team will have, on this particular case, they had a large fly tip on, I think it was 3 or 4 occasions in Martyrs Avenue, and they couldn't find out who it was. So we have special powers. If we can link it to another case, we can sometimes find out who it is. And this was an actual case where we went down, myself and one of our colleagues, we actually went through the fly tip and found paperwork to link it back to someone. So when a colleague of mine has then gone to, I think it's about 4 companies in there, we've had to go to 4 different companies, find out who they use to take their waste away, whether they had waste transfer licenses, things like that. So it's not something that we do on a daily basis, but it's one of the things where we're there to assist teams. The community wardens didn't have the capability at that time to do it. I think they're starting to do their own fly tip cases now. I'd have to find that out. But it's just where we make ourselves available to assist in any particular way. And sorry, I forgot the first part of the question.
Performance targets.
We don't have any performance targets set out for us. I think if we were to have targets set out, it may open us up to looking at cases that aren't the right cases, if you like, aren't not big enough, that's the wrong word, but what we want to do is we want to make the most impact we can and save the most amount of money for Crawley Borough Council. If we had a target of cases, I think we may be taking on a lot more smaller cases. A fraud investigation, we couldn't give you a time frame on it either. It couldn't be like it goes for a 2-month period, because we may have to request bank statements. So a typical fraud investigation, we would do a credit report on someone. We find out they've got one bank account. We request those bank statements. They may take 3 weeks to come back to us from the bank, not from the person. When we get that, we see they've got transfers to other bank accounts. So we have to get them ones, and we have to collate it all. And it's all the evidence we have to get before we interview people under caution, or before we put the evidence to them. So we haven't got specific targets, same way we haven't got a time frame that we could say it has to be done within a small 2-week, 3-week window, something like that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the report be noted. Are we all agreed with that? Okay, great. We now move on to the risk management update, which starts on page 155 of the agenda pack. The strategic risk register at Appendix A starts on page 159. So I will ask Siraj Chowdhury, the Head of Governance, People and Performance, to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, last item of the evening, I will take the report as read, but I'll try and pick up some key parts, and particularly because we have a couple of new members of the committee. So I'll start with probably this is the strategic risk register, which corporate management team reviews on a regular basis, effectively looking at the challenges that the organisation faces, and that will most prominently potentially affect the council's ability to deliver services and to take forward the kind of corporate objectives. So I'll move to the objectives of having a risk management strategy and having a register itself. So the idea there at 5.1 of the report is that risk management should be integrated into the culture of the council. And by that, it means that heads of service or people at all levels are able to identify risks and know what should be put on the risk register. Across the organisations, across the different service teams, they hold operational risk registers, so risks that are very directly related to their service and to the customers that they look after. So there are operational risks all over the organisation. These are the ones that are strategic, and what's important is that people know when to escalate a risk, when an operational risk is going to become a strategic risk that will affect the whole organisation. So it's about building that culture. I think the council's made good progress in recent years on this. And the other objective is to manage risk in accordance with best practice. So the idea is we've identified the risk. What are we doing about it? Have we got good mitigations in place? Sometimes there is no mitigation, but it's about understanding that as well. We do benchmark as well. So we look at what's happening with other councils. Are there risks that other councils have identified that may or may not apply to us? And the national picture as well. There may be things nationally that are happening that we need to take into account on a local level. And the final objective is obviously by identifying these risks, the idea is to prevent injury, damage, financial loss, reputational damage to the council, and to make sure that service delivery continues. So this is about seeing things as early as possible and trying to do something to prevent those risks. So the Strategic Risk Register as it stands, as I said, it's a live document that corporate management team review. It's appended to this report, and there are a number of risks listed on there with a risk rating, a residual risk, a inherent risk. So what does it start with, what the mitigation is, and then post-mitigation, what's the residual risk. On the register, we have a kind of direction of travel indication. So if a risk has gone up in score, you'll see that, and if it's gone down, you'll see that as well. And if something comes off there, if we decide a risk shouldn't be on there anymore, we normally put that in this report, and you'll know kind of why it's been removed. So there isn't too much movement. There hasn't been too many kind of increases or decreases. But what you have in the report at 7.1 is probably the risks that have been updated, mainly in terms of just what's happening around that risk rather than the score. So the first one in there at 7.1 is actually risk 1. So this is the council's first risk on its register, maintaining a balanced budget. And I'll just give way to Caroline briefly, if that's all right, just to kind of explain the kind of latest on this risk, if that's all right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this is fairly up to date. I mean, I think the only thing that's sort of changed since this was updated is that the consultation on the Fair Funding Review 2.0 is now closed, and we're waiting for some more information to come back in September. But we won't actually know our funding allocations till, well, they're saying we might get them at the end of November, but let's wait and see. But so by far the sort of biggest risk to the council going forward is our funding and the sort of continuation of the amount that we're spending on homelessness.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was just one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Unless there are any questions for Caroline on that. Are there any? No. Okay. So then just very briefly then, just to take you through the other ones. So risk 3 was around migration asylum pressures. So last year, kind of summer last year, we had an arrival of a Chagossian contingent, which was quite a large group which arrived, and the council took measures, took actions to look after that group, do its best for that group, and it incurred some costs up front, but most of which have been now covered by government funding. But the reason why it was put on there as a risk is that whether there were going to be further repeats of that kind of arrival. There haven't been since last summer. But it's just keeping that risk there, knowing that if it was to happen again, government have said that they would assist. So that remains on the risk register. The score's unchanged. Water neutrality risk 6 is so it had a big impact on development and planning generally in the borough in the last few years since Natural England kind of made their position statement around water neutrality. So really it's an update that there's an offsetting scheme being developed with Southern Water and other stakeholders, and that's to look at ways of saving water and hopefully freeing up water effectively so that development can happen and things can start moving a bit more easily in the kind of development and planning world. But again, no change to the score, but just acknowledging that there are things moving to try and improve that situation. Risk 8, disaster recovery. Just again, our IT section are very diligent in respect to cybersecurity, and just looking at the threats that are very fluid and actually occur quite often. And so our defences need to be up to scratch. And it was just reacting to kind of recent cyber attacks on some of the big retail kind of companies, and just looking at what we can do. A few minor kind of mitigations and changes, but the assurance is that the council has it's maintained its public services network standard certification for this year, and that probably is a good assurance in terms of trying to tackle this. Again, unchanged score, but it's an example of how if something's happening nationally, we just revisit it, review it on a local level. I'll just pick up stock condition, which is a risk 14, which due to kind of law changes, we've had our kind of housing stop, our housing inspection, which was a good outcome, but obviously the housing stock is a big part of that, and there's upcoming law or new legislation, which means there's a huge focus on the condition of our stock, and lots of work happening at the moment in terms of improvements. So it's been put on as a new risk, and I think it's to stay for this financial year, with a kind of watching brief, to make sure that the planned programme for kind of repairs and improvement make sure that we're well positioned to kind of push back against things like disrepair claims and complaints around the condition of properties. And then the final one is local government reorganisation, mainly an update. This is moving quite fast, as members know from other meetings that they've attended. Probably the next milestone is the 26th of September, when the council will be putting forward its proposal, and there's several council meetings in mid-September where members will be looking at the options paper and considering that in a lot of detail. But the reason why this is on the risk register is because two reasons. One is that there's potentially a lot of work and a lot of extra work for officers in terms of preparation for local government reorg. With the proposal, that's one thing, but then once kind of decisions are made down the line, then kind of the move towards kind of the new model will involve probably more officers and more officer time. So it's being mindful of that on the horizon, and also the level of uncertainty that local government reorg brings, and it's just managing our staff's kind of expectations, giving them reassurances in terms of what's happening, keeping them up to date with what's happening. So it's on our risk register for those reasons. The score's not changed since the last time, but that may change in the kind of coming months. So that's kind of the ones that corporate management team have focused on and updated recently. Apart from that, I think that's all I wanted to mention. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the report. So thank you for the presentation. One of the recommendations on this report is to determine wherever there are any matters in relation to the register which the committee would like to be drawn to the attention of the Chief Executive or Cabinet. With this in mind, if you would like a specific comment to be brought to their attention, please make this clear during the debate, and Mez will make a note for when we come to the vote. I will now open the discussion up to the committee. Please indicate if you'd like to speak. Councillor Hellier.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Siraj. Just a couple of things, really. In terms of the risk 13 in recruitment, retention and succession planning, given the government reorganisation, I don't feel that the mitigations of 9 should be there. I think that is going to be an area where we are going to have perhaps some concerns with the restructuring, and for now, at least, I personally think it should be at 12 and not at 9. And I do think it is an area that we are going to have to focus on, given September date is not very far away. And also on item 3, sorry, I'm just going back. It was on the mitigation and the asylum pressures. We've got a current score of 20 and we put it down to 16. But again, I'm not so sure that we have an influence on that, from what I recollect, in terms of even though we have kind of mitigated things financially, I think we are still waiting for various things to hit us. And I think that score personally should be at 20 and not at 16, and should stay there, even though you said that we did step in when we had everybody sort of camped out at K2, I believe it was, at the time. But I don't feel that it's something that is a better risk now. I do think it's still there and should still be at 20. So I just welcome your comments on that.
So we'll take the one you've just mentioned, so around the migration asylum. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. As I say, corporate management team can review it based on what they think. But if you want to put that forward as something to bring to the attention of the chief executive, where I think we're happy to review it and revisit it, look at, as you say, in terms of the funding, exactly what has been covered, and whether there's any indication that there would be a repeat of that particular arrival last summer. As I said, there hasn't been, but that doesn't mean that that there's no chance of that ever happening. So yeah, this is a watching brief on this one, as with most of these, but we're happy to kind of look at that at our next CMT, and just so that we can I can relay that we had it at 20, and the view is perhaps whether it should stay at 20 as opposed to come down. So we'll do that if Mez, you make a note of that one. And
sorry,
then,
could I just add in that? I would agree with Councillor Hellier there. So it's not just one councillor speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm pretty much with the other point you made as well.
Okay. And to come to the recruitment retention risk, I think what I'd say is that we're still pretty early days in terms of LGR. We're not seeing any indication of large volumes of staff at different levels of the organisation reacting to LGR by kind of walking with their feet and finding new jobs. We're not seeing that. We're not, certainly at corporate management team, we're not having heads of service saying they're losing large volumes of staff at a rapid rate. So I think we're early days, hence the score. But again, LGR is moving quite quickly, as you say, this month, later this month, and it will do kind of as we hit the new year. So again, I'm happy for corporate management team to kind of rediscuss that one again. We've got that at I think it's 9. That one come down from from 12. So I think, did you have a score in mind? I think you said something at the beginning.
I think really to leave it at 12 for now, but I do think it is somewhere that we may very well see it perhaps move into the red as we get closer to the restructuring. But for now, I would be happy to leave it on 12 rather than 9.
Okay. Well, again, we'll make note of that and we'll rediscuss that at CMT. Councillor Russell.
Yeah, sorry. If I again could just add a voice of support to that. I mean, it's in part people leaving, but when people have left, particularly with Crawley being one of those boroughs that's due to disappear, it's then replacing those people for the time that we have left is going to prove very difficult, which is why I think retaining it at a high level would be suitable.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. So, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. There are 2 recommendations set out in the report, and I will deal with them separately. I move recommendation 1, that the committee confirms it's satisfied with the risk management arrangements. May I have a committee member to second this? Thank you, Councillor Hellier. May I have a show of hands in support of the motion? Okay, great. Motion has been carried.
Okay, so with regards to recommendation 2, comments were made during the debate, as we've just discussed, with regards to risk 3, which was the migration and asylum pressures, and it was moved that the risk potentially could be 20 and not 16, and that be taken to CMT and Chief Executive to review. We also had the recruitment, retention and succession planning, risk 13, and it was proposed that the risk should be at 12 and not 9, and that again was agreed to go to CMT and be reconsidered. So with that in mind, I ask the Chair to formally move that those comments be brought to the attention of the Chief Executive.
Yes, I formally move, thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask someone to second? Lovely. Thank you. So if I could ask everyone in favour of that motion. Lovely. So that's now been carried. Thank you.
Go on to the supplementary agenda. Yeah, cool. So we are now moving on to the supplementary agenda, but there is no supplementary agenda. So therefore, with the business of the committee concluded, the meeting is now closed at 9:06 p.m. And the next meeting is scheduled for November the 18th, 2025. So I look forward to welcoming you all then, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. If you just bear with me, I'm just going to turn off the live stream. Thank you.